And here we go again, 201 with Chapter 7, North Africa and Southwest Asia. In this video, I will go over the first three areas of this region of the world. The environmental geography is first, and what do you know? Deforestation is a problem of this region. And human activities have conspired with natural conditions to reduce most of the Mediterranean region's forest to grass and scrub. Browsing by goats has been blamed for the loss of forests, and livestock is also blamed. This has been going on for 1,000 years, and it's led to soil erosion and poor water supply, as we've seen in other regions. Northern Iran and southern Turkey do retain some forest cover. Another part of the environment is salinization. This is an ancient problem. This is largely a desert region in North Africa and Southwest Asia. When you irrigate, salt builds up over time, and because there's very little rainfall to wash the soil out, get the salt out of that soil, eventually the crop yields begin to decline, and eventually the soil becomes infertile and they have to abandon these lands. And some historians have said that this is why some of those ancient civilizations have declined in places like the Tigris and the Euphrates, because they were irrigated and they were very prosperous, but eventually too much salt ruins the soil. And this problem heavily affects, as I said, Iraq, central Iran, Egypt, and the Maghreb, the western island of Tunis, Algeria, and Morocco. Managing water is a big environmental issue. As technological change has accelerated, the scale and impact of water management schemes have had a growing effect on the region's environment. In Iran, the Qanat system has been used for centuries, where they dig tunnels that tap into groundwater instead of wells, and those tunnels then are dug in a certain way to where the water is then directed into the fields and villages, and they've had pretty well efficient success with this technique. In 1970, the Aswan High Dam in Egypt was completed, and year-round cropping and large amounts of electricity are positive results of the dam's completion. But increased salinization and use of fertilizers, the infilling of Lake Nasser, schistosomiasis, parasitic disease, and the collapse of Mediterranean fishing near the mouth of the Nile River have declined. The Peace Corridor project that's been conducted by Israel is trying to establish a conduit from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea to try to revive that sea. It's really an inland lake, and hopefully they're trying to keep it from drying up, and they want to try to generate electricity as well. Fossil water underground from earlier and wetter times has been used in Libya to expand agriculture, and Saudi Arabia has invested in deep water wells. Underground supplies are being depleted faster than they're being replenished, and this is a big issue, a big topic in this region of the world. Hydropolitics, the use of water resources by countries that share drainage basins. What is going to be solved or settled between these different Southwest Asia and North Africa countries? Population. Urbanization began in Mesopotamia by 3500 before the Common Era. It was estimated to have 25,000 people. And similar centers were in Egypt. More on that in World Civ I. Ancient cities were key centers of political and religious control, and they were usually walled to offer protection. By 2000, a new type of city was emerging, one connected to the growing trade caravans that were crisscrossed in this region of North Africa and Southwest Asia. From the kingdoms in West Africa and Northwest Africa, they would travel across to Mecca and Medina, because many of these groups were Muslim and they have to make the pilgrimage once in their lifetime. and they would bring gold from those West African and Northwest African trading countries, and they would bring salt and other products back from Southwest Asia, and things that they didn't have where they came from. Beirut and Damascus were ancient caravan towns that are still there today, but Beirut is a disaster area. And some of the features of the Islamic cityscape: the walled urban core or Medina, dominated by a central mosque, which is the Islamic Church, with its educational, religious, and administrative functions. A nearby bazaar, or the souk, serves as a marketplace for trade. There's narrow, twisting streets with shade. Privacy is very important for women. That's why houses have very small windows. There are private courtyards, and dead-end streets are shared by extended families. Colonialism left a legacy of British Victorian buildings, French mansard roofs, and suburban housing, and wide European-style boulevards. Algiers, the fez, is a characteristic of former French colonies. That's that square hat. Cairo was a British colony, and Cairo has a lot of those British features that we were just talking about. Since 1950, urban centers have become the focal points of economic growth, and rural populations are drawn to economic opportunity in the cities, adding to population increases, and we've seen this in other regions. Cairo, that's dated statistic. There's more than 15 million people there now. Its city of the dead was home to almost 1 million people, a combination cemetery, homes, and apartments, interestingly enough. The wealthy then have moved farther out, and other areas are sites for industry, financed by multinational corporations. The oil-rich nations of the Persian Gulf have changed tremendously in the last 25 years. Saudi Arabia is more urban than many industrialized countries. In Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates, Doha, Qatar, Kuwait cities are very, very urban places. Kuwait has taken traditional agriculture and combined it with Western influences to create a new cityscape of the 21st century. There are some good pictures of that in the text. Culture: Islam dominates this region of the world. And you should be familiar with the 5 pillars. There is one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. You need to pray 5 times a day, preferably facing Mecca. You have to fast during the holy month of Ramadan, which changes every year. It's a different month. And you need to do good works or charitable works. And you need to make the Hajj, or the pilgrimage, once in your lifetime. Which is why this is a tourist region, because there are Islamic people all over the world, and by definition they need to go to this region once in their lifetime if they can, and many do. Many Islamic fundamentalists argue that these rules are the basis for a theocratic state, which is modern-day Iran, in which religious leaders like the Ayatollahs guide policy. That is the difference between Islam and many other religions, is that it's also a political faith as well, not just a moral and ethical one. And there was a big schism in the religion with the death of Muhammad. Who's going to be the proper successor to guide the faith forward? That was never established. Shiites, or the Shia faith, believe that it passed down through his brother-in-law Ali. But the majority of Muslims, the Sunnis, favor power passing through the established clergy that followed after the death of Muhammad. And that's where the conflicts have gone on between Shias and Sunni Muslims. And many of the wars in that region today are fought between those 2 major groups. There are other sects of Islam, but those are the 2 main ones. And you can see here the different areas that were brought under control of the Islamic empires. We talk about that in World Civilizations. The Arabs were big. The Persians largely follow the Shia faith, whereas Arabs tend to be more Sunni. And they would expand into Europe at one point in time, but by 1500, the Islamic Empire was largely out of Europe after that time. Southern Africa was also exposed to the Islamic faith. Again, the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal have heavy Muslim influences. And in 1453, Constantinople was conquered by Mehmed II, and that ended the Byzantine Empire. That was largely of the Orthodox Christian faith. And there's good maps on this in the textbook if you are interested. It is the majority faith, Islam, except Israel, which is Jewish. The Shia brand or Shiite brand of Islam is appealing to the poor, the powerless, and the more rural populations. Jerusalem is the city of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And it is a sacred place for all three religions, and this is the heart of all the political problems in that particular region of the world. And another big problem is the statelessness of the Kurds. Kurdistan is the largest non-nation state in the world. It exists, but it's in 4 different political states of Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. They're a minority in all those countries, but Kurdistan is in the minds of the Kurdish people. It is a different language, and they have a different cultural tradition in these different little regions of those 4 countries. Kurdish language is spoken by 10 to 15 million people in that region. It wasn't written historically, but it is spoken. They are without a political state at this time, and they have been persecuted heavily by Turks and by Saddam Hussein while he was in control of Iraq. They have some political autonomy today, and they are largely because they're governing themselves, they are escaping a lot of the violence that went on in the post-Saddam era. What is going to happen to the Kurds? This is an interesting topic of this particular part of the world. And that's about it for the first 3 topics in North Africa and Southwest Asia.